Hello. For any English speakers here, the quote here above the man's head reads, "Remember that you can be a user of your own product." That's for an intro. So my name is Adam Jaworski, and for some years I've been serving in ABB as a user experience and design manager. I happen to have a degree in psychology, which again happens to be quite popular among this year's Dev Day speakers, because we are two. If you feel urgent need for tweets, that's it. That's the Twitter. But I prefer you to listen. I would like to start with telling you two stories. The first story happened in ABB, which is a production company that operates within power and industrial automation. That's this company. Together with a couple of employees, we went for a trip to a Transformers factory to Łódź, just to learn how our software behaves in natural environment, how people use it, just to contact developers, designers, and real users. And it was a regular bashing session. Oh, we hate this, we hate that, this doesn't work, that doesn't work, this is okay. So, you know, just a regular bashing session. After the official part, I asked one lady in her mid-50s, a long-term employee of ABB, Transformers factory, from quality and operational excellence team, okay, the bashing, but is there anything you could name a good example then? And she responded, oh yes, we have an app. Like 15 years ago, we had a programmer sitting in that corner, and the guy was absolutely amazing. He just sit there, he was just listening what we are doing, we were telling him stuff, and he programmed an application for us, and we still use it. It's perfect. It's about how we work. Yes, it might be a little bit outdated, but we don't need anything else. Okay, cool. Can you show me the app, please? It looked like this. I can't show you the original app, but just for you to get an idea how bad the interface was, how cumbersome it was to use the app. However, she liked it. Back then I thought, okay, if only I had a design team, a proper design team to improve this design abomination. The second story took place 80 years ago and originated the saying that something is the best thing since the sliced bread. In 1930, Otto Rohwedder, who was German, I guess, an engineer and jeweler, was naturally meeting a lot of people in his jewelry stores. So he was producing jewelry as an engineer. He was talking a lot to ladies, to housewives. He took some extra steps, and he learned that jewelry isn't a big problem for the ladies. But surprisingly, slicing bread was a big problem, because bread loaves were big, were very hard. So what happened? A typical startup story that can be written even today. He sold his jewelry business, 3 stores and a workshop back then. Well, I guess that selling all your business to fund your startup can be better done in Kickstarter today, but anyway, sort of ancient funding. In 2 years, he patented a machine that would slice the bread in perfect pieces and wrap it up in a waxed paper. I guess if Samsung did it today, the bread could potentially explode, but what left for the new businessman was a survey in local newspapers asking, okay, please help me determine what's the optimal thickness of a bread slice. And the response was huge. He got 30,000 of responses from housewives helping him to determine the optimal thickness. Kind of a SurveyMonkey predecessor. Within 3 years, 80% of bread sold in US was sliced. So his business was perfect. He was selling the machines to bakeries. Then World War II broke. And due to the heavy wrapping around the bread, the government imposed a ban on bread slicing. The waxed paper was, I think, of a better use in different parts of wartime economy. And the public outcry was tremendous, which eventually led the US legislators to lift the ban. But people have been writing letters. I should like to let you see how important sliced bread is to the morality and saneness of a household. This is a quote from Suzanne, published in New York Times. So it sparked a heavy discussion around slicing bread in US during the World War II. It was all about the usefulness of the solution delivered for human and with humans. Why I'm telling you those two stories? They have something in common. They are about engineers solving human problems by listening to people and using good product skills to deliver a solution. Now it's time to debunk the first myth I'd like to debunk today. That you as developers should leave design to artists and creatives of all sorts and focus on hardcore IT. The myth is that, the truth is that there's a difference between art and design. An artist expresses himself in creative way, expresses the ideas, whereas designer listens to people and employs scientific methods to design a right solution. Okay, so there is a difference. Artistry isn't in any way a good approach to software design. It's not. It's like imagine a psychotherapy sessions. Probably some of you have attended the psychotherapy here. So if a therapist keeps talking and talking and talking, he's kind of an artist. If he listens, he tries to discover patterns in your behavior, he's a designer. The truth is that you should design for people and with people. My observation is that today, software developers assume that it's perfect to code, I can do code. It's very handy to test and to write some automated tests. It's absolutely essential to do DevOps so that we can have full control. But for some reason, you leave design of your app to designers. I don't quite know. Okay, I'll pretend I know in this presentation why it happens. I'll try to tell you why it happens, but that's the truth. You like to do code, you do testing, you do development operations, but somehow you leave design to creatives. I might be a little bit idealistic here, but yeah, let's be idealistic for a moment. The ideal I find most appealing when we talk about engineering is an interwar period engineer/constructor. You know, the guy capable of not only putting pieces together and making the gears fit together, but the guy who can construct, test, and design a product that's appealing to a lot of people. Pre-war engineers were all capable of doing that. Not only the coding, the construction part, but also designing. This is the example of the first Polish motorcycle ever produced, Sokół. Although a lot of people were involved in production, the whole work, the construction, the testing, the prototyping, the design, the colors, the visual part was done by this man, Zygmunt Okołów. So that's kind of ideal. Let's leave you with this ideal. I don't mean you all need to do that, but this is the ideal. A pre-war engineer capable of doing everything. I've been working with developers a lot, crafting pixel-perfect prototypes. My ego was happy. Developers were happy because they had almost everything that they needed to perform their job. But regardless of how pixel-perfect my design is or was, the user experience happens in the output. by interacting with the real product. The real product is forefront of your code. So user experience is not about me delivering pixel perfect prototypes to you. It's about people interacting with your code. What I would like to stress is that the design part, be it interface, be it physical form, is the most intimate thing for people, because it touches the very essence of human existence, because people can actually touch the thing with their own finger, and it can evoke emotions. Emotions can lead to actions, and actions can, for example, make you being fired or get a salary raise. So it's essential. Why developers don't think about design in products? Why do you leave it? I once found a law, kind of an old law, figured out by Conway in 1968. The Conway law says that your products or a system will be an exact copy of your internal organization or communication structure. What does it mean? If you have a relational database guy in your team and HTML, JavaScript developer, you will most probably land with every product equipped with a relational database, HTML, and JavaScript file, even if a simple command line is absolutely okay because the app is for hardcore developers. And this is the essence of a Conway law. Regardless of whether your skill is needed or not, the product, its construction, its design will be a reflection of how you are organized together. What does your team consist of? If you don't have human factors designer, visual designer or interaction designer or whatever you call it, you will most probably will not think about people and delivering things for people. Alan Kelly, to picture the Conway law, asked us to imagine an emergency scene somewhere in New York. Okay, there is an emergency, and Superman comes saying, "I can use my power to move the bus out of here." Then the fireman comes and says, "I can melt this brick of ice with my eyes." Then the drill man, "I can drill hell of a hole in the ground here." But okay, the human stands 5 meters away from you, just pick him up. Regardless of what your superpower as a developer is, you will find a way to utilize it in software design, regardless of whether it's needed or not. That's the truth. If you don't have a designer around you, or a developer who acts like a designer, who is assigned with the designer jobs, you'll probably skip this part. The good thing is, it's enough to know about that to cope. Google tries to fight with a Conway effect by imprinting every new developer with their motto saying, focus on user and everything else will follow. Only then you can do your job. If you put user in a focus point in the first place, you'll most probably use your development superpowers in a right and powerful way. Myth number 2, guys. Yeah, our project managers know about this human stuff and people stuff. We don't need to. Is that something familiar in your thinking? I don't need to do design. I don't need to talk to people. Our project managers probably do that. Nope, they don't. Most probably, working in corporation or a mid-sized business, your PM, your bunch of stakeholders will not see a user, a real user, for their entire lifetime. They will claim they do. They meet a lot of users. We meet a lot of users here and there. Yeah, but we use the product. We are good users, good examples. Oh, we have a couple of super users spread in the world. No, it's not enough. For PM, product manager, project manager, program manager, it's not enough that they know something about the potential users. We are making a huge gap here between developers and between people you are designing everything for. One of my favorite quotes comes from an industrial designer, the guy who designed this famous lounge chair, Charles Eames. And he told that never delegate understanding. It's just the one thing in your job that you cannot delegate. I've added people here. So never delegate understanding people you are doing it for. Now, myth number 3. Yeah, we are developers. We are not trained to do this stuff. Well, look, I don't differentiate this font to another. I don't know. I don't differentiate green to blue. I'm just a pure developer. Okay, but to design a product means focus on user, on the real need, then design a set of features that will meet the real need. Pack them together using common interaction standards. And then, yes, you can wrap it up using some visual design, using fonts, using colors, but that's really the last part. To design means first, focus on the real need of people, needs of people, then design a right set of features. We would probably call it minimum viable product, and that means minimum viable set of features. And only then you can wrap it up in colors, in fonts, in stuff, in animation. That's not really what design is all about. I had a colleague in ABB, actually was the first user experience designer in ABB in Krakow, saying that, who liked to say that a little kitten dies every time someone mentions visual design, and means just the visual design. The truth is that human-centered design can be learned. If you're a developer, yes, it can be learned, because it's just another set of methodologies. This is just another set of checklists. This is just another set of knowledge that you can acquire. Just grab a book or grab the internet. Artistry, probably not. Probably not. Although some people claim today they are artists, but design is something that you can learn as a developer, definitely. I know several companies when developers doing design were quite successful. In one of the biggest companies here in Krakow, that name starts with C, there were a group of hardcore backend developers, and they had the need to learn how to talk to users, how to interview them, how to observe them. And after 2 months of heavy practice, they now cannot live without it, without talking to users. Every week they ask, okay, who do we meet this week? Because we need it. Because we need to confront our thoughts, our practices, our code with what people think at the moment. If you're interested in that topic, you could probably watch some of Anna Miedzianowska from Ocado Technology keynotes and conferences. She's been acting like a product owner in London for e-commerce, for a grocery store chain in England. What she asks every developer for that joins the team is to spend 2 whole days driving the delivery trucks with driver. Just to know how they work, what do they think, what are their challenges, and only then the developers are allowed to touch the code for a platform that helps the drivers to optimize their roads, etc., etc. Myself, personally, I'm more than happy when developers challenge a lot what I design, what I produce. Now, I know that developers are, well, we all are masters in avoiding human interactions. So just let me show you just a GIF that pictures and captures perfectly what we are doing to avoid users and people and all that stuff. Let me play it once again. I like that movie so much. The truth is, I need to drink some water. So, we are all masters in avoiding users. We all do that. No, I don't want to talk to user. It's not necessary. What's essential, and if you don't like this presentation, you can go after reading that. You can't do good products unless you love people. And to love people, you need to know them. Because just thinking you love people without knowing them is just like falling in love in very first days of your relationship. It's the essence of human-centered design. Not the visual design, but the design of your product. The good thing for developers is that people behave in a very, very rational way. In psychology, we would say that people behave according to scripts. It's the scientific term. The good thing is that observing people, interviewing them, can be learned. Getting to know your users, just to find a comparison, a benchmark, is like reading an obsolete code. You need a lot of time. You need to sit, you need to relax, you need to get a good cup of coffee, and after some hours, you start to realize what do they think, what the developer thought while he was writing the code. And this is a good analogy of what interviewing and observing people, real users, is. So my piece of advice, just very, very basic one, but it's only thing you need to do if you want to engage with people, with users. Just go and observe them. Talk to them, watch them, how they use your product. Take the product away and see how they cope with the problem then. Try to discover patterns. Don't ask for their opinions, but rather observe and discover patterns in the behavior. The myth number 4. Okay, we are all in. We are now convinced we can do that, so let us design the perfect user experience. The myth here is that the term user experience design doesn't exist, purely because you cannot design an experience. Your user may have an eyesore the very first day they open your app, and it's so flashy, it's so bright that the experience is very, very bad. They can sneeze, and you cannot predict. There are too many variables within your user's realm. You can design a good product and test for user experience. Let me simplify things a bit for developers, because it worked. Let's, instead of user experience, let's talk very old school and old-fashioned, outdated term, comfort. So we are not designing the user experience. We are designing products that are very much comfortable for our people. See, it's simpler, it's clearer to understand. All developers like that. Because yes, indeed, user experience is another buzzword. It's a buzzword for all kinds of practices that existed 100 years back. So the ultimate goal of applying design to software is to make people feel comfortable using your product. I usually talk about all of that to product managers, project managers, developers, architects, senior developers, junior developers, and after 20 minutes, it's been 20 minutes, I always hear, okay, but we still can't draw. No, we cannot do that. No, you're right, but we still cannot draw. So, what the heck? User experience is not about colors. Let me show you a classic, but somehow forgotten classification of what does it mean to design for a comfortable product. It's not only visual clues. What you can do instead of drawing if you're a developer. What are the questions that you might ask in the team to understand if you are doing good design or not? This is called a user experience honeycomb, but it's just a funny name for a set of essential areas that influence comfort. So first one, how credible is your app? Does your brand reinforces credibility if the visual interface is full of flaws, misalignments here and there? What signal does it send to your users? Do I trust this app enough to send the money or to give my personal details? Do I feel comfortable that these ugly-looking chat messages are stored securely? So credibility as a thing you need to design in your app. Now, accessibility. And frankly speaking, it reaches far, far beyond what we mean by accessibility today. By accessibility, we mean a set of standards that can be found on some weird sites in US internet. But we need to design for kind of, I would name it, modern disabilities. Can people access it using older computers? That's trivial, but this is to design a good, comfortable experience. Can older people access it? It's very important in the next 20 years. Or people with shaky hands, eyesight problems, in a bright sunlight. Is your app visible in bright sunlight? Do you use a common language or proper wording? Because very often developers are guys who write system messages. Do you use a common language, a language that is easy to understand? Do you design your messages? Is your thumb up icon understandable and cultural in all cultures? Do you assume it's understood in the same way across the cultures? What about people with depression, which happens, unfortunately, to be more and more present in our society? What language do you use? Very often, we like to start our mobile app with, "Hi, this is a perfect day. It will be a great day." How do we think about people who are depressed and read that message? Okay, about the code. Now, how accessible is your code? I mean, do you have good commands in your code that allow people to access and understand the code? Now, the findability. Yes, it's about finding your app among 100,000 of millions of apps somewhere. But more importantly, to design for a findability means, can you easily locate the unique value proposition within the app interface? You have 2 or 3 seconds to do that, to easily locate what's unique in your app. What can I do? This is to design for a findability. What about URL? Guys, this is like the most common thing that is widely omitted in our apps. Do we design our URLs so that they are user-friendly? Or is it just a random string of some random characters and critic signs? Do we design your URL so that people can instantly remember it? Is it all useful? You know, slicing a bread. Does it do your job? Does the app helps you to do your job or not? Because if I need to use the app in my daily job, during my daily routines, probably somehow associated with me getting a salary increase or me being fired. Do we design for usefulness? Next, if it is useful, can people easily use it? And that's the small difference between usefulness and usability. Very often today, usability is another buzzword. Oh, this app is not usable enough. It has a bad usability. Usability is rarely a problem. Usefulness is. So, speaking of usability, can people, do you design a learning curve within your application? Because again, if you ask a designer for a static mockup, probably he will not think about the very complex process that is learning your app. So probably you, as a developer, should ask the question, what can we do to design for an optimal learning of our app? How can we onboard new users in a very effective and fruitful way? The last thing is value. Is it valuable enough? How do we design value? How we present value? How we convince people that this is something worth paying for? Most probably, those are the questions that nobody asks. Or you developers think, okay, our PM will take care of all this. My point is, you cannot design good product. Good product, the product cannot have good experience if you don't ask this question. The truth is, and this is one of these design laws or design advices, that things work best when they are designed with the next bigger context in mind. That's very simple. If you design a door handle, you should think about the hand and a door. If you design a commercial building, you need to think about the district and a city. If you design a magazine cover, you need to think about a newsstand or a human eyes. So design works best when it's designed, when it's done with the next larger context. So why would software be different? The next bigger context for software we do is always today, for most of times, not always. For most of times, the next bigger context of your software is human. And yet we spend dramatically low amount of time thinking about people. Just getting back to stories. Developer from Łódź was loving to code, was loving to sit in the corner, as well as he loved to listen to people, to sit with them, to listen to them, to have a coffee with them, asking them questions, watching, seeing, hearing how they work, and only then he could develop a perfect app for them. So he combined two things, an engineering spirit, because heck, it was just one developer with probably a server computer somewhere under his desk. Probably it's still there after those 15 years. The app probably in which it runs like it was running 15 years ago. So he combined this engineering spirit with a deep love for hearing people, for being with them, and only then you can discover real needs. A jeweler took an extra step to talk to his clients, which nevertheless revealed, I think, what happened, the biggest shift in his mindset. So the jeweler sold his old jewelry business. He learned that the problems of his clients, ladies, housewives, lie totally somewhere else. That jewelry isn't really a big part of their lives. Again, an engineering spirit, because he didn't come to an investor saying, "Hi, I have an idea." No, he just patented the machine. But it wouldn't be possible if he first didn't take an extra step talking to people. He was primarily interested in human needs. Some good tech followed. Now, my presentation is coming to an end. It's already Monday, or I feel like it was Monday. I would like to leave you with just one GIF animation showing what design is not. Okay? Design is not. Yet somehow, very often, designers are associated to that kind of jobs. That's all. Like 34 minutes, wasn't that bad. If you have any questions, please ask. If you don't have any questions, I will ask some questions. Yes, please.
Why would the government ban bread slicing?
As far as I know, the bread was packed in a waxed paper, and that was a second leg of Otto invention. That it's not big deal to slice the bread, but it's big deal to pack that so that it's still fresh in US. So the waxed paper, probably it was, like my thinking was, it was about wax. And wax was of a great use in military jackets, because the military jackets was made from a waxed cotton that made it waterproof. So it's probably not about paper, it's about wax. That's a good question. Okay. Okay, now my part. I would like to ask you a question, because the only way to survey what I would like to know is to ask you right here. How many of you work with a designer? Shit. A lot. But that's great. How many of you, I'm asking those who don't work with a designer, do design? Do you still do design? Cool. 3, 4. Yeah. That's great. Thank you. No big agenda, no hidden agenda in those questions. I just want to know how this. Do we improve as a designers with teaching developers that design is a rightful way to approach software design? Thank you. If you have any private questions or you need an advice, I'm still here for a couple of minutes, so don't hesitate to come. Thank you very much.